We also have some news about the second COVID-19 vaccine that hopefully will do the same. Moderna saying early results suggest its vaccine is nearly 95% effective. And this, of course, comes just a week after Pfizer's encouraging vaccine announcement as this country now faces an alarming rise in COVID cases.
That's right, a staggering million new cases in just the last week. The U.S. total now over 11 million, and hospitalizations and deaths inevitably on the rise as well. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar is standing by to discuss these new developments. First, let's go to Alex Perez in Chicago with the latest. Good morning, Alex.
Hey, good morning, George. That good news on the vaccine front comes as cities and states across the country are reinstating restrictions, hoping to get a handle on the growing number of cases.
This morning, breaking news on the coronavirus vaccine, a sign of hope. Moderna announcing its vaccine could be up to 94.5% effective. The company planning to ask for FDA authorization in the coming weeks.
Vaccines really are on the horizon. In fact, we now have real data in large phase 3 trials showing that they are safe and effective at preventing COVID-19.
The announcement this morning coming after cases across the U.S. topped 11 million. That's 1 million additional cases in just a week. North Dakota's governor implementing a mask mandate, and Michigan's governor suspending indoor dining and ending in-person learning at high schools and colleges.
We are in the worst moment of this pandemic to date. The situation has never been more dire.
Hospitals reaching a breaking point, too. In South Dakota, this nurse's tweet going viral after claiming that some of her patients dying in her hospital still don't believe the virus is real. Her concern echoed by 36-year-old Kelly Meeker from Minnesota, who has been hospitalized for a month and a half and was just recently taken off a ventilator.
I've heard a lot of stories of people telling me that they've had COVID, but it wasn't very bad. It was just a mild cold. But I'm just here to say that it can be much more serious.
Texas resident Bonnie Nahara, part of a club nobody wants to join.
First, my mother passed away. Then my dad. Then my cousin Martha. My Aunt Rachel. My Aunt Lupe. And my Uncle Louis.
Coronavirus killed 6 of her family members this year.
We're going to have empty chairs that will never, ever be filled again.
So much heartbreak for one family to bear. Now back to the vaccine. Moderna says unlike Pfizer, their vaccine can be stored at normal refrigeration temperatures, which could be helpful when it comes to distribution. George?
Okay, Alex, thanks very much. Let's bring in the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Alex Azar. Secretary Azar, thanks for joining us again this morning. The second week in a row, we're starting out with good news on a vaccine.
Yeah, George, I'm just delighted to be with you first on GMA to break the news about this Moderna vaccine. I stood with President Trump in March with Tony Fauci in the very lab at NIH where we engineered this vaccine on January 13th. And the president said back in March that he hoped to have a vaccine in 12 months. And Tony Fauci interrupted him and said, well, maybe 18 if we're optimistic. And here we are 10 months from the date when this virus hit our shore, and we've got a second 90% plus effective vaccine for the American people. This is really a historic day, and we hope that because of Moderna and Pfizer's vaccines, which we've already been producing, to have enough by the end of December to vaccinate 20 million of our most vulnerable citizens.
So that's 20 million by the end of December. Who's going to get it first?
Well, we're going to follow the guidance once the full data package is in, that we're going to follow the guidance of CDC, and they'll look at, is it senior citizens in nursing homes, is it first responders and healthcare workers? It'll be wherever it's going to add the most value according to the data and the science and the recommendations of our experts.
How about broader distribution over time? The states say they need billions more to administer and track these vaccines. They've only gotten a little under 200 million.
Well, we'll ensure the states have whatever funding is needed, but it's really important. Some of our states just are still operating under a misconception. They don't actually touch the vaccine. This all goes through private distribution channels, goes to the CVS's, Walgreens, pharmacies, health centers, hospitals. Some of our governors, we're having a call with the governors again this afternoon with the vice president, and we'll work to keep getting that understanding there, but we'll get them whatever they need. We're going to make sure this is a good distribution process for these historic vaccines.
The president has questioned whether the announcement of the Pfizer vaccine and Moderna were held until after the election. Do you buy that?
Well, we've made it clear, I've made it clear, there'll be no politicization of these processes, and I just assume everybody else involved similarly is calling balls and strikes based on science, data, and evidence, and that is certainly what we're going to do. It's just, let's be celebrating right now. We have 2 vaccines that are with massive development programs, over 90% effective. George, in public health, we do not get 90% plus effective vaccines often, and here we have 2 vaccines with that type of efficacy and clean safety profiles. And thanks to President Trump's Operation Warp Speed, we're in commercial manufacturing of them as well as 4 others. So, George, it's just a great day for public health as we're looking at this coronavirus crisis, and we can have hope for the future for all of us.
We are all encouraged by the news. There's no question about that. But it is going to take some time for these vaccines to be distributed on a widespread basis. What do we do in the meantime? The incoming chief of staff for President-elect Biden, Ron Klain, said yesterday that because the GSA hasn't authorized the transition, Biden's team is in the dark on planning their transition as well. They can't contact the health officials they need to ensure a seamless transition, to ensure that that vaccine distribution process continues as he takes office.
Well, George, our distribution planning is 100% transparent. We have publicized our playbook. We have plans from all 64 public health jurisdictions in the United States on the distribution. And once GSA determines that if there is a transition to do, we will ensure that it's cooperative and professional. But right now, the American people should be reassured that we're moving ahead in collaboration with all of our states and local authorities to make sure the vaccine distribution works well.
But don't you need to be talking to the President-elect's team now?
Well, George, we'll make sure that happens when and if it's appropriate to do that. But right now, we're working with all of the jurisdictions across the country which really will make the prioritization decisions, and we'll be shipping the vaccine where they determine it ought to go.
Why isn't it appropriate now?
George, GSA has to make a determination that a transition is in effect. That determination has been made. My focus here is on vaccines, and also the important message for the American people that as we have this hope of 2 vaccines with incredible efficacy, therapeutic we approved last week, Eli Lilly's monoclonal antibody to treat patients to keep them out of the hospital, hopefully, that there's so much hope, but we need people to act responsibly. Wash your hands, watch your distance, wear your face coverings when you can't do it, and be very careful of indoor settings like indoor restaurants and bars or household gatherings where you're going to let your guard down, and you may not do those things. That's how this disease is spreading. We don't have to shut down because we know that our universities, our K-12 schools, our workplaces, and flying on airlines, these are not the major vectors of disease transmission. It's those casual indoor gatherings where we have to really keep our guard up. And why? Because there's so much hope, and I want everyone to make it to the day where they can get a safe and effective vaccine and where there's plentiful of these treatments to be able to keep people out of the hospital if they do get COVID.
So no Thanksgiving and Christmas celebrations indoors?
No, we can have our Thanksgiving and Christmas celebrations indoors. We've put up guidance from the CDC. There's a range of risk from different types of activities. We've given very, very good practical advice about you want to think about how many people are at your gathering. Is it just household members or others also there? The more people you have, the more risk. The more you want to make sure you have social distance and wear face coverings. Try to have as much ventilation of any indoor gathering as possible. Of course, if you can do it outside, do that. But we have a lot of handy tips at cdc.gov or coronavirus.gov to help guide your family as you think about Thanksgiving and Christmas gatherings.
Secretary Azar, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, George.